Sup? Here's Square's answer to Gran Turismo Driving Emotion Type Pass. Hey, what does it say Fuka on the box? When you think of Square, or Squaresoft, Square Enix, or whatever, you usually associate it with RPGs, you know, this kind of stuff. However, like any other games company, they did dabble into other genres, albeit with mixed measures of success. Idle stuff doesn't count, by the way. They did, or at least published, fighting games such as the Tobal games and Air Guys. God bless this fucking mess. Beat 'em ups such as The Bouncer. Hey, is that Sora? Shoot 'em ups like Hindhander. Great soundtrack, by the way. And of course, racing games with cult classics such as Chocobo Racing and Racing Lagoon, as well as those like Chocobo GP and this. From Escape, here's Driving Emotion Type Pass, released in March 30th of 2000 in Japan, just weeks after the PS2's launch there, and in late January of next year in overseas markets. This game was notorious for being, shit. So shit that Escape tried to fix it for its Western release, hence that large gap between dates. But even then, it was enough to put a stop to the critical panning, as well as abysmal sales. Even Gran Turismo fans weren't that desperate to buy it. It's not a good sign when this brand advert exists. Brakes are for sissies. The fuck are you on about? But does it deserve its reputation? Well, Better Rich's law of headlines tells me to disagree, but let's find out anyway. Language selected people to copyright guff. Wait, isn't this the American version? Why is there more Eurocentric languages here? Whatever, published by Square Electronic Arts. Yeah, there was a time these two had a partnership, mainly in the publishing side as you can see. Basically, Square released some EA games to Japan, and vice versa to the West. It lasted for a few years, until they went, hey, we can handle that on our own easily now, in 2002. Here's the title screen with no intro cinematic before it. Look, there's a Porsche in the front. This is co-published by EA, by the way. I should say that the Japanese version does play the intro before the title screen, as well as having a different one that doesn't highlight the European cars. I like the overseas version more though. Wow, look at this basic ass menu. Even for an early PS2 game, this is quite lacking. But it does have the regular modes, arcade, time attack, line training. Does this thing have licenses? Well, kinda, but it's mostly a time trial mode with a racing line. But there are these other cross tracks where you get to earn cars by beating the required time, so it's not a total loss. Unfortunately, I could only do the first one, as you'll see why. However, like the GT PSP game, there's no proper career mode. This thing's way of progression is by getting first place in an arcade type pass race to unlock tracks and cars. At least I don't need to do all 4 divisions to unlock a track, just the first and there you go. While I don't mind it, since this is supposed to be a GT clone, it feels like one of those spin-offs. Gran Turismo Concept comes to mind. However, it isn't all doom and gloom. While there's only a few cars unlocked from the start, you can actually customize them, at least changing colors, rims, and mechanical settings. But you can save them in your memory card, which I think is neat. Not a promising start though, but I hope it gets better. First thing I see in a race is a cockpit view. That's a surprise. Gran Turismo didn't have that until 5 Prologue. While I'm not a fan of cockpit views in general, I think it looks good. The windshield view is much clearer than most, and the steering wheel isn't as prominent, though my driver's hands are at 10 and 2, which, while not a bad position, it isn't very racer-like. At least they're not at 11 and 1. Pro tip, it's actually never a good idea to drive like that, lest you get serious injuries in the event of a crash. I'd still rather drive in chase cam, but the game really wants me to play it in cockpit view, as every race starts that way. Ugh. For the graphics in general, I won't let them slide since it's a very early PS2 game. It was released in March of 2000, mind you. But I just can't. The cars don't look good even compared to something like a Dreamcast Racer of its time. Or even a Ridge Racer 5, that was a launch title even. They're about as raw as the ones from the first Tokyo Extreme Racer, a game from 1999. I'm guessing this is an emulation issue, but man, the third taillights are rough. Other quirks include the fact that I can't look back, and no rearview mirror when in bumper cam, not even a cockpit view. This is the third racing camera review in a row that doesn't have that. It's not just that, the localization was rather lazy. They had 10 months to fix the gameplay, yet they couldn't swap the badges from this Toyota Altezza when making it a Lexus IS. Why not just keep it as an Altezza anyway? The tracks look fine, but it still doesn't put Gran Turismo 2's to shame. At least they have fun extras like fireworks in Urban Highway, and this Red Bull Province. Weirdly enough, the replays are letterboxed like it's Grid 2 or some shit. At least they have better camera shots than that, though it's sometimes like to linger or empty star markers after the cars go off. Sound is rather mediocre. The cars almost sound like the opponents from GT2, just vacuum cleaners all around. This is way worse than in the GT games. I do like the menu sounds though. For music, it works like in Sega GT, only one song per track. Even the first GT didn't do that stuff. Regardless, they're a treat. The soundtrack was composed by the same people behind the Ridge Racer and Street Fighter EX games, mainly Shinji Hosoe, Ayako Saso, and Takayuki Ayara. While they're not as great as those games, they're no grip or, well, every Street Fighter EX track, they're still banging, especially the few rock-oriented tracks. And as a sucker for saxophone solos, I love the post-race menu screen. It's a shame it's glitchy in the emulation most of the time. I take back what I said about Grid 2's handling, this is worse. Turning your car feels so slow, it's like the controls are delayed. Feels like driving with a D-pad in Gran Turismo, except it's much worse. And I'm using a stick here. You'll more likely fishtail when trying to race, so it seems winning here is impossible. However, I somehow managed to get used to it. What I had to do was move the stick much higher than usual, and I'll tackle the corner like a champ. It doesn't always work, mind you, but I seem to enjoy more with this in mind. Still, I played racing sims with more manageable handling than this, with a gamepad, mind you. If this is what the fixed version is supposed to be, I can't imagine what the Japanese original feels like. Well, I did try the original version, and what the fuck? This has a better looking main menu! I've been robbed! And it also has a better chase cam than the overseas version, though it has this weird motion blur that I really don't like. Anyway, yeah, it is what I expected. It's way worse. Not even my tricks can do the job well. Though I managed to win one race there. Maybe that's why some of the tracks are wide, like West Coast. The pang levels are wide here. But I then checked the options menu and I saw that you can adjust both the margin and response to the steering. I was looking at this and suddenly thought, maybe people think it's shit because they didn't bother changing the steering response. I'm pretty sure this is a game changer. It wasn't. No matter how you said it, the driving is still ass. That's a fucking bummer. Much like the old Gran Turismo games, there's 5 opponents to race against and neither mechanical nor visual damage to worry about. The AI opponents are rather meh. You'd be more worried about their car's performance than their skills if you ask me. There's no rubber banding or any dirty tricks. The only thing you're finding here are the controls. And no, you can't change the difficulty in the options menu, which sucks. By default, you do 2 laps every race, but thankfully you can change the amount in the options menu. Up to 5. Hell, you can even do 1 lap sprints, but I won't recommend it, especially when you're even against your opponents. The track list is a curious case. Outside of the autocross tracks and the oval, 5 tracks out of 8 are original, yet they're taking pictures from the GT games. The West Coast track has the hill jumps that give me Seattle vibes, and Urban Highway is the obligatory Special Stage Route 5 knockoff. Hell, it looks more like that track than that city track in Sega GT, except this one has a bridge, so it's not entirely a rip-off. While I like the beginner course, the export layout is really rough. Man, this hairpin is just bad. It could have been a lot better. I like the expert province track because it has a dirt section with jumps to tackle. It would be fine in any other racer, but this is gonna be hell here, holy shit. Surprisingly, for an early GT clone, there's real tracks here, Tsukuba and Suzuka, both East and GP layouts. This thing got Suzuka before GT4, lucky bastards. Though with these controls, tackling the casted triangle can be a bitch. The car list is also very small, way smaller than even the first Gran Turismo, but also interesting. There's 43 licensed vehicles here, and most of them are just your typical Japanese cars you see in the GT games. An NSX, a Supra, an Impreza, my beloved, a Skyline GTR, and all that. But there's also the foreign brands. There's a TVR because, of course. It's missing Aston Martin though, but there's also an Alfa Romeo, a BMW, 2 Ferraris, and 2 Porsches. Oh my god, it's a 911 GT3! Cuz, look away! It's amazing they managed to get the rights to use those cars. Is that why the game looks cheap? That explains the complete lack of American brands. Where's my Corvette? There's also Pajero, as well as rally variants of that and the Lancer, plus a few HGTC cars, including the Castrol Supra. Because of course they would have them, at least it has Suzuki in it. Tension, but it's weird that GT3 only had the BMW 328 Ci instead of an M3. Even weirder that never show up again in a later game. So that was that. As this game is so bare bones you can almost taste it, it's hardly surprising that this is a quick review. I didn't think it's as bad as people say, but it has the caveat where you have to get used to the controls. If not that, then it's really lacking in features. No career mode, a small selection of cars and tracks, and overall, I think you could just quickly complete this game in one day. I do like the car customization, but even that is bare bones compared to something like TXR2. It was smart to wait for GT3 to get this out right, judging by the sale records, so nowadays it's nothing more than an obscure curiosity. Really, this review was only done so that I can come back to regularly schedule uploading, because holy shit, I was so behind when doing my grid sequel videos. And I have 2 big surprises coming up for next month, so I'm gonna be very busy. But for now, taking a break from all that racing stuff, next time, the closest I'll ever get to review Final Fantasy VII.